Dreading going to work tomorrow? At least you don't have to spend an eternity sucking people's blood. Hey, welcome to another edition of the Sunday Scaries. I'm your host, Mike, and today I'm really excited to be talking to you about Interview with the Vampire. This is a terrific vampire film, which is one of my favorite subgenres of horror. Interview with the Vampire is a terrific movie. It's got a killer cast. It's led by Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, Kirsten Dunst when she was very young, Antonio Banderas, and Christian Slater is also in the film. Now, the movie is really interesting. It is not traditional vampires from the standpoint of they're allergic to holy water or crosses hurt them or anything like that, but they're traditional in the fact that they live forever. There's kind of this process of you have to suck a vampire's blood in order to become one. A terrific vampire film in that regard. It is very gory, so for those who don't like gore, I don't recommend this one. And it's also very violent. These are not your Twilight vampires, which I don't know if you even can call vampires in my opinion, but these are some really tough vampires that aren't afraid to kill. Now, the movie starts out in modern day San Francisco, or in 1994 when the film came out, and a journalist meets Brad Pitt, and he senses something interesting about Brad Pitt's character, whose name is Louis, and asks to do an interview. And during the beginning of the interview, Brad Pitt's character says he's a vampire, wants to tell him his life story. And he quickly convinces the guy that he is a vampire by showing some supernatural speed and a few other things. So they quickly dive into that Brad Pitt's character has been alive for several hundred years. He starts his story about how he became a vampire, which takes place in the late 1700s. At the time when Louis was alive, he was the owner of a large plantation full of slaves, but he recently lost his wife, who died during childbirth or died from complications from childbirth, and is deeply depressed. He's drinking himself to death. He's going out with random whores and women and getting drunk every night, and he clearly wants to die, or he has no meaning to live anymore. While searching for death, Louis catches the eye of a vampire named Lestat, and Lestat is interested in Louis for a number of reasons, and one night comes to him while he's with a woman, murders her, bites him, and then later comes to him again and offers to give him immortality, make him a vampire. And Louis, who has nothing really to live for, decides to accept the offer. He doesn't fully understand what he's getting into, but he accepts, and he remembers his last sunrise and becomes a vampire the next night. Louis quickly discovers he's nothing like Lestat, and Lestat really loves to murder, loves to kill people. I don't know if Louis fully understood that he'd have to murder people in order to live a vampire life at the time. He still has his humanity during this time, and Lestat is very abusive, almost like a slave owner himself. It's deeply hinted that he wanted Louis's plantation and wealth, and that's part of what he was attracted to in this situation. So Louis, for a long time, rebels, and there's this period of he's really struggling to be a vampire, really does not want to exist anymore. And Lestat, in order to keep him with him, he decides to make a little girl, who is Kirsten Dunst's character, into a vampire. And the film goes down a bunch of different directions. It's a violent and gory film. Now, what's really interesting about this movie, and I'm not going to say too much more because I don't want to spoil anything. This is a spoil-free review of Interview with the Vampire. There's a couple really terrifying themes in this film. Now, the first is the vampires themselves. Again, they are very vicious in this movie. Lestat loves to stalk multiple people every night, drink their blood, he toys with them, he'll even mentally abuse them before he kills them. It's not just about drinking blood for nourishment, but he loves to hurt people. And there's this sadistic side to him. And he even does it to Louis after he turns him into a vampire. So these are very vicious killers. Unlike completely traditional vampires who crosses hurt or holy water hurt, or the vampire needs to be invited into your home in order to harm you, these ones can pretty much do anything they want. Outside of they can't go into the sunlight, they do sleep in coffins during the day. It's not 100% explained why they need to sleep in coffins and can't just be in a dark basement. But they're not those traditional vamps. Silver and holy water and different things like that can harm, which makes them very terrifying creatures. But the next interesting theme in this film, which is even more scarier than the monsters, is there's this fear of loneliness. Even though Lestat hates Louis, separate from wealth, he does not want to lose him. He does not want to wander the earth alone, and he's so dependent on just having companionship and knowing that there's someone else like him in the world. He does it to the point where he's so desperate to keep Louis that he even makes a little girl into a vampire, which later in the movie is talked about that that's very frowned upon and against vampire laws. Again, not going to spoil too much, but there's something about him not wanting to be alone. Even though he's so self-absorbed, he doesn't seem to care for anyone around him. And the final thing that's completely horrifying in this movie that you really only could comprehend if you actually became an immortal is this idea that without looking towards death as sort of an end goal, life is empty. Living the same way every single day over and over again and not working towards something, not living for something bigger than yourself is this intense emptiness. And you really see it through Louis, or Brad Pitt's character in this. And he just is completely lost after almost being tricked into this gift of immortality. While initially it seems like a gift, it ends up being a curse, because through the film and through all the things that the characters go through, they come to the realization that death is actually necessary. It gives people purpose in the sense of they know that their life is eventually going to end. They're working towards something, and it organizes life. It brings order in a way that people are going to work their jobs. They're going to try to raise a family. Different parts of your life have different stages you're supposed to go through, and these vampires are just stuck in the same stage of their lives over and over again, and they're never making any progress. They're just frozen in time. And the majority of people throughout the world and through the centuries believe in some kind of afterlife. People have all different religions and all different faiths, and knowing that there's something on the other side brings meaning to life. And these vampires don't have any meaning, and they don't have anything that they're trying to work towards at the end. And when the vampires even examine their lives and measure it up to religion, if they believed in that, they believe they're damned and they're going to hell. So they're really not working towards anything. And that's where you see this emptiness and the circle of just doing the same thing over and over again happening. It's also interesting because death is the one thing none of us can escape. And regardless if you're religious, not religious, everybody knows something's coming when you die. Even the most developed faiths that talk about the afterlife don't fully explain what's going to happen when you die. And in that regard, there is this scariness, but at the same time, there is a comfort knowing something else is going to happen at the end of your life. And these vampires are never going to experience that because they're going to continuously live forever and ever. Now, just a couple of things that really stick out about the movie from a film perspective. First of all, the acting in this is incredible. Tom Cruise is so fun as this evil, psychotic vampire, and you can tell he had so much fun in the role. Brad Pitt is also a really good humanized character living as a vampire, and I believe this movie got several Academy Award nominations in 1994 because the acting and the story was so strong. Additionally, Kirsten Dunst was another just standout performance. She's playing, I believe, a 12-year-old in the film, but if anyone couldn't see she was going to be a Hollywood star after just owning this vampire role and being completely terrifying when she's murdering people, I don't know who could possibly miss that. The fun thing about a movie that spans over several hundred years is you can start out in the late 1700s and work your way up through different styles and fashion all the way into the late 1990s or mid 1990s. But it's fun to just see the different costumes, the set pieces, and the actors just kind of embody these old soul characters. Now, as far as rating this movie, this is a 4.5 out of 5 for overall quality. Separate from just technical film stuff, it's a great story. It's one of those classic vampire films, and it's definitely for people that want more of horror experience with the vampires. Not that it's an overly scary film. There's nothing kind and cuddly or sparkly like Twilight about these vampires. As far as the fun meter goes, I also got to give it a 4.5 out of 5. I think it's a ton of fun. I love the actors in the film. Thanks again for tuning into this week's episode of the Sunday Scaries. Please subscribe and ding that bell for notifications. Would love to continue to grow the channel. And if you're still dreading work tomorrow, just think at least you don't have to get up every single day for the rest of eternity and work the same dead-end job over and over again.